So it was starvation in the ghetto. People were hungry, constantly hungry. Prices of food were very high. And it was no occupation really from what to make a living.
As the ghetto population peaks at 450,000, living conditions become unbearable. The streets are full of starving children, and the diseases of poverty are rampant, first typhus and then tuberculosis.
About 1/3 of the ghetto's inhabitants were living in subhuman conditions, in cellars and old schools and abandoned cinemas and synagogues and so on. There was no food for them, and they were slowly dying.
At Treblinka, only 80 kilometers northeast of Warsaw, the gas chambers are designed to kill 6,000 people a day. The camp receives its first victims in early July 1942. Just 2 weeks later, the Nazis informed the head of the Warsaw Judenrat, Adam Cherniakow, that most of the Jews of the ghetto will be deported to the east at the rate of 6,000 people a day. During the first week of the deportations, Jewish policemen, acting under German orders, evacuate the streets of the ghetto, picking up homeless beggars and children, the destitute, the elderly, the sick, and the unemployed. Baruch Spiegel was a youth activist in the Bund.
We knew already that taking them to Treblinka, there are gas chambers, and they were gassed. Some people didn't believe it. It's impossible.
But there are people in the ghetto who favor armed resistance, the members of the underground youth movements. These include Zionist groups who before the war prepared Jewish teenagers for emigration to Palestine. In March 1942, at a secret conference, one of the Zionist youth leaders, Yitzhak Zuckerman, calls for the immediate formation of a Jewish fighting organization.
There were no weapons. We had a pistol that didn't work. One of the fighters tried stabbing a pillow with a knife to see if he could stab a person. We were not used to thinking about killing, about shooting someone with a weapon.
The Jewish youth movements order their members to avoid deportation at all costs and to attempt escape from the trains if they are captured. Aharon Karmi is 20 years old when he breaks out of a train carrying him and his family to Treblinka.
And then my father told us, go and jump off the train. In the end, he said, if one of you will succeed in jumping from the train and remain alive, perhaps you will avenge our deaths.
The Jewish resistance fighters announce their presence by setting fire to German-owned businesses in the ghetto. The fighters also distribute leaflets, warning Jews that deportation means death and urging them to resist in any way possible.
My function was to go after curfew and paste the posters calling the Jews to armed rebellion. There were patrols, but it was dark. And we knew the streets, and we're going through the valleys, through the backyards, risking our lives, but we were young, and one was going with a bucket and the brush to paste the wall, and the other one was running with the roll of posters and clipping them. We were too young, I think, to realize how dangerous it really was. The order of the day from Hashomer Atzair was that we are not going to be taken alive. We are not going to be allowed to take on the transports. There was just a conviction, we are just not going.
By the fall of 1942, the Warsaw Ghetto is a desolate place, emptied of most of its people. Jewish leaders now believe it is just a matter of time before the Nazis will return to deport the remaining population. All the youth movements, including the Socialist Bund, now commit themselves to armed resistance. By January 1943, the Jewish Fighting Organization grows to 500 members, with a command staff headed by two Zionist youth leaders, Mordecai Anielewicz and Yitzhak Zuckerman, and with a small cache of 30 handguns. There's also a second resistance group of 200 Zionist youth, the ZZW, or the Jewish Fighting Union. The Jewish Fighting Organization issues a manifesto urging all the Jews of the ghetto to resist any further deportations and to be ready, the manifesto says, to die as human beings.
Just this, just the will to fight, just to show them they want us so humiliate that we are not human beings at all.
The Germans decide to make their final assault on the ghetto on the eve of Passover, Monday, April 19th, 1943. They mobilize almost 2,000 soldiers and 36 officers.
And on the first Seder, on April 19th, 1943, we get a note calls from the other side. The Germans are surrounding the ghetto. A platoon of German soldiers came through the Muranowska Street into the ghetto and went to the Muranowska Square, singing, happy. Now, when they came on the Muranowska Street, there were two buildings there with flags. One Jewish flag with the Magen David, and one Polish flag. The boys, the Jewish boys, knew that every bullet has to kill. Otherwise, they won't come out. So when they stopped singing and standing there on the Muranowska Square, they came under fire. And it was hell for them, because so many fell. They threw their guns and they ran away.
There are only 700 Jewish fighters, many of them teenagers. They're armed with pistols, grenades, Molotov cocktails, with a few rifles and one machine gun.
We knew we had to stand up to the regular German army, which had conquered almost all of Europe. We knew that we could not engage in a conflict on a similar scale.
We had two aims, vengeance and the redemption of the honor of the Jewish people, that we would not go like sheep to the slaughter, that there would be resistance.
At 6 a.m., German units, still under the command of Colonel von Sammern, place artillery around the ghetto and enter the gates supported by a few armored vehicles. They find only deserted streets. Jewish resistance fighters are hiding high above them, watching from the windows of abandoned apartments. At the corner of Mila and Zamenhof, they wait until the Germans are right below, and then let loose with a barrage of homemade grenades, gasoline bombs, and pistol fire.
So it's unbelievable. I don't believe it. That's our young boys, young men without military background, without education in tactics. Don't forget, you're asking what did the tactics? Nothing. Not one of the leaders had a military background.
On the second day of the uprising, the major fighting does not begin until 2 o'clock in the afternoon. When the Germans enter a small square, the Jewish defenders detonate a mine hidden under the intersection, which kills and injures a large number of German soldiers. Aharon Karmi remembers that day, the day of Hitler's birthday, as a joyous one for the Jewish resistance.
Then, in that moment, when I shot at the Germans and saw them falling, then I said, "This is the revenge that my father wanted. This is the moment."
By the fourth day, the Germans begin to burn down the ghetto, block by block.
The whole city was in flame because the whole city was burning. So many blocks, not one, so many blocks. Most of them took their children to their carousel, which was with music, which was around that. You could see with the naked eye what was going on in the ghetto, the flames and the burning, everything. And you were just listening to the expressions, Jews are burning. I was in that environment of the people. Until today I cannot understand where did I take the strength not to scream, not to reveal who I am, that I look at my people burning and I cannot say anything. And here the carousel is running, the people are on the carousel with the parents happy.
I will never forget the picture. We went out into the ghetto at night and we passed through raging flames. I don't know how we passed through, how we did it. I have no idea. I can only tell you that the asphalt was melting under our feet. Window panes were exploding. Everything was flowing like water. It was hell on earth.
The situation at Mila 18 becomes desperate. Nearly all the food is gone, the air is bad, heat unbearable, and the fighters have almost no ammunition left. Resistance commander Mordecai Anielewicz orders 20 more fighters to try to escape from the ghetto. Many of them do not want to leave their comrades, even if it means death.
I told him I'm not leaving. He said to me, no, you are going. There are 10 others in the group and you are going with them. You will go to Yitzhak Zuckerman and tell him what is happening here, that he should send help quickly so we could get out to the forest or somewhere else. Maybe he can send weapons. That's what I had to tell him. The situation is very bad and we need help.
But help never comes. On May 7th, the Germans discover the location of the bunker at number 18 Mila Street. The next morning at 10 a.m., they return. It takes 2 hours to break into the bunker. The fighting is fierce, and the Germans use poison gas to try to drive the fighters out. Most of the 120 Jewish resistance fighters, including their commander, Mordecai Anielewicz, decide it is better to die at their own hands than become prisoners of the Nazis. With their remaining bullets, one by one, they shoot themselves. At the very last moment, as the Germans break in, 15 fighters find a previously undiscovered passageway leading outside and get away undetected. But most of the fighters perish. The final testament of Mordecai Anielewicz is a letter sent earlier in the uprising to his deputy, Yitzhak Zuckerman. Anielewicz wrote, "Peace go with you, my friend. Perhaps we shall meet again. The main thing is the dream of my life has come true. Self-defense in the ghetto and Jewish armed resistance have become a reality. I have lived to see the magnificent heroism of Jewish fighters in battle. But the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising was just part of the fabric of Jewish resistance.
We know today of 63 places where there were resistance groups. We know of roughly 20,000 Jews who fought in the forests. So this is not an isolated case, you see. Wherever they had the opportunity, and in some places where they didn't have the opportunity, they fought.
to live with honor and die with honor. It was their message to us all. They gave their lives for our freedom. Through pain and agony, fought for humanity. We'll keep their memory.